Good afternoon. Today is, God, what is today? January 28th, 2026. Just got back from a amazing time in Mexico. Really almost a festival wedding at the end of the day is kind of what we're calling it based on the amount of fun that we were having. Shout out to Chad and Leah for an amazing wedding. Such a good time. I'm definitely going to at least need about a week to recover. So if today's 12 at 12 sucks, that's on me. Actually, that's on them at the end of the day, but I'm an adult. Joe, thanks for jumping in here. Is the first one. Guys, thanks for going in. Man, we got the 512 boxing lawyer in here. If anybody needs a lawyer, hit her up. If anybody wants to get your ass kicked, also hit her up. She's going to be able to box you out there. Guys, again, this is Paul Smith tuning into the 12 at 12. Today is January 26th. 26. We're going to go ahead. Actually, today's the 28th. Fuck. Today's January 28th, 2026. I'm going to go ahead and knock out my photos real quick so that way my thumbnails don't look stupid. Let's go. All right. Guys, there's a lot to talk about today. My social media person is excited for that. Lots to talk about today, guys. One, I don't know if anybody saw, but the additions to the Austin light rail have been approved, got federal approving, which is huge, by the way. For those that don't know what that means that this project is greenlit. They're going to start in 2027. It will deliver in 2033. Understand that's a decent amount of time from now. That's 7 years from now. Tyler says, yo, from 2 feet of snow. Creative. I love it. Oh, God. Denise is here. Awesome. Great. It's cool. My number one fan / heckler is in the house. Shout out to my wife, Denise. We're going to talk about the Austin Light Rail project, clears federal hurdle. It's going to be an $8 billion investment that they're going to be putting towards construction. And for those that don't know, right now, none of the light rail services south of the river. Everything services north of the river. And so this is going to go south of the river, basically coming in from where they have the, did he say yo, from no feet of the snow? Basically where they have the rowing center at now is where this is going to go south. It's going to go south. It's going to go on the other side of Congress. It's going to go out towards Riverside, going down to Lakeshore, Pleasant Valley. It's going to stop at the Grove or Grove Street, then Montopolis, Yellow Jacket, all the way out to the airport. Also, it's going to go south down South Congress, which is huge, all the way down to Altorf, right? So right now, if you think about all the things happening in South Congress with the Statesman site, there's the site next to it that's getting ready to contract as well. That family's owned that land since the early 1900s. Fun fact, they actually used to grow spinach on that land. And since then, City of Austin had a 99-year ground lease that recently just came due. This family also owns the land under the Catherine, in all of the dirt in between South Congress and South First along the river, just south of Riverside and Barton Creek in that area. Old school Austin family. Interesting. Again, they don't sell their dirt. They ground lease it. Right. And so I actually heard the owner of that property say one time, and this really kind of stayed with me, as he said, rich people sell, wealthy people keep. And at the end of the day, the ultra wealthy, they keep their real estate and they ground lease it. For those that don't know what a 99-year ground lease is, essentially a 99-year ground lease allows the leaser the ability to act as if they own the property. The bank views it as if it's an ownership, so they can go out and build on that property. So at the end of this 99-year lease, this family will get the piece of dirt back with the structures on it. So imagine if all of a sudden now there's 55-story structures. In 100 years, that family gets that back with that property, which means that it's going to be worth billions at that point, significantly more. I mean, who knows exactly what it'll be? Shit, it might be $1 trillion at that point. Think about 100 years from now, the cost of money and everything else with inflation, it very well could be $1 trillion in 100 years. Most likely probably would be, because it'll be billions now when they build it. That's interesting though, right? Because one of the things that we always talk about is what are the opportunities to invest based on the information that we have now. And I think successful people will look at things that are happening within the world, within the US, within the city, take a look at those things, and then start to push their chips in certain areas based on whatever's happening. And this rail proposal, which isn't even a proposal now, it's on, right? It's going to be delivered by 2033. If I live over on Montopolis, or if I was looking to invest, I would look at buying dirt over on Montopolis. If you think about the domain, in the domain 7 years before the light rail was delivered. So let's say the domain in 2010, I was able to buy duplexes in the domain at 2010 for less than 100,000. Crazy to think about it, but in that area, off of Ptarmigan, over off of Breaker Lane, you know, Quill Hollow, Quill Valley, those areas over there, you'd have been able to buy dirt, a duplex, for 100,000. I think that you can buy a duplex now over on Montopolis for 200 to 220. That's the dirt value. You could come in, fix it up a little bit, and just rent it and keep it as a rental. And at some point down the road, when the light rail is delivered, you're going to be able to tear it down and build, at least as of today's zoning, 3 units on there, depending on how big the lot is. Knowing that your dirt cost is 200, let's say 6 years from now, you go to roll that dirt in, and let's say the cost of the dirt now is 450. You're not going to have to put any additional money down to get a construction note, because that additional 250 in equity that you have becomes the down payment for your real estate. And in that area, I guarantee you, 7 years from now, East Riverside is going to be drastically different. Because think about what's happening between South Congress right now, all the way out to 183, and then what's happening past 183, just past that. Let's say you go another mile, right? You've got Carson Creek, which has recently been bought, is going through a complete redevelopment. I actually saw the site plan this weekend. Looks dope. Super excited for it. And then over in that area, you also have the Dog's Head investment with Endeavor. So this piece of land is going to be sandwiched between South Congress, which is going to be one of the largest developments that's happening in Austin over the next 10 years, and the Dog's Head, which is also going to be one of the largest developments happening over the next 10 years in Austin. And this is the gateway to that area. This is what the city of Austin has always wanted East Riverside to be. They want East Riverside to be the gateway to Austin. And that's what you're going to see here. Super exciting. It actually, if you look at the way that they have the line going out right now it's yellow all the way to Yellow Jacket. And then it turns to almost like a mustard color based on what they have in ABJ. If that mustard color sweeps up and goes into the Dog's Head. So that's going to be the equivalent of delivering at the new domain, which is what they did with the last one. That's why they had that Koenig stop. That was the domain. And you actually, as they bring in the ASA rail, you'd actually be able to stop there and downtown and be able to walk from San Antonio to Austin from downtown or from the domain area, which is going to be the uptown. Bit interesting is I guarantee you that Altorf site is the start of it. For those that don't know, St. Elmo Market is just on the other side of South Congress and Ben White, or 290. Denise will say it's 71, but she's full of shit. I call it 290 right there. And just south of that, they just rezoned it. So in St. Elmo now, you can have up to 20-story buildings. Think about a 200-foot tall building in St. Elmo. Right now, one of the largest buildings is Public Lofts. It's 6 stories. Think about if you had buildings that are another 14 stories taller than that, right? That's currently the tallest building that's in the domain is at that level, that 20-story level. That'll be another area. Yeah, see, there you go. It's 71, bro. Come and fight at our house, especially after we've been partying. I told you it's your fault, not mine. So, think about this. That line is going to connect right now, SoCo to Altorf. That's going to go south from there. I guarantee it. Now, as this happens, it's going to make these areas significantly more walkable. So if you're looking to buy or looking to invest, is there something on South Congress, let's say maybe a mile past St. Elmo, that could be a good commercial play? Because if you bought commercial or you sold commercial over there within the last 10 years, you were selling that land based on only being able to go up 6 stories. Now, Ray, what's going on, man? I hope you've been well. I would love to see you in Austin at some point, by the way, man. Shout out to Crime by Design jumping in here. Think about this, right? You've got Now you've got land that if they sold it within the last 10 years, you can only go 6 stories. Now you can go 20 stories. That dirt value just shot up, let's call it at least 3 to 4x. And if you go back 20 years ago, it's probably shot up 100x from there because of the way that they've rezoned it. And again, these are things that we know have been coming because that density was changed to a TOD, which just means transit oriented district, right? So the city of Austin has all these different TOD lines throughout the state or throughout the city. And as you're looking at those, you can find out where they are, and you can find out the ones that are further enough outside where you can get in early, and then you can let the wave hit you. That's a way to pick up real estate, and then you can ride that wave. And that's a way that if you get in early enough, you can then be the person that does the 99-year ground lease to the large developer. And this is a way that you can create generational wealth by doing 99-year ground leases, by understanding trends and where things are going to come. And guess what? It might be 20 years from now, but at the end of the day, the best time to plant the tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today, right? So where can we go where we can get out in front of it? So we will be looking back 20 years from now and be like, man, I'm glad I planted that tree. I think it's going to be different areas. Yeah, it's called TOD, Transit Oriented District. And go ahead and look it up. There's a bunch of them. Anderson Lane is one. North Lamar is one. North Burnett is one. Airport Boulevard is one as well. So you're going to start to see a lot of dope stuff happening along Airport Boulevard. Those things are pretty neat. Things that I would definitely be looking at as potential ways to invest. Let's see. ABJ reports that the census numbers for Texas put it at #1 for growth. Is anybody surprised, really, at the end of the day? Like, Texas typically #1, Florida #2. There's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, one, job growth is huge. Looking at it right now, there's 65 companies that had announced that they're either hiring more people or they're bringing their headquarters to Austin. In 2024, there were 57 companies. You guys, I think that's also, we're talking about waves. That's the tip of the spear. That's the tip of the wave on this, because a lot of these companies were waiting until interest rates lowered before they announced. The reason for that is if you live in, let's say, Nashville, and your company wants to move to Austin and you're sitting on a 3% rate, they're not going to make their employees move from Nashville to Austin and then jump in a 7% rate. It would destroy them. They'd lose a large percentage of their workforce at that point. They just like, I'm not moving. Good thing now is rates have come down. You can get a good rate at, say, 5.5%. Historically, still below average. For those that don't know, since the time of the Egyptians, the average rate is 6% across the board. Obviously, in the 70s, it was significantly higher. In 2020, it was significantly lower. And that just really depends on the things that are happening within the world at that point. Again, I think the announcements, that's the tip of the iceberg. And this also didn't include Blue Origin's announcement. Large packing company has also announced. So those are 2 different billion-dollar investments at that point. But there's, just based off of what Grok and ChatGPT set up, there was about 8,900 jobs essentially in 2025 that are coming. Everything from SpaceX, Blue Origin. That's not including the 250 billion that Samsung's doing up in Taylor area. And our current GDP is 200 billion, and it's going up at about 4.9% annually at that point. So if you think about that, that ends up being about 20 to 25 billion annually in positive GDP growth for the Austin MSA. That's huge. And that's why you're seeing a lot of people move here. That, in the addition of real estate prices that have come down drastically, but have certainly bottomed, rental rates that have come down drastically, but are also going to bottom because you have all these people here. And right now, it's not advantageous to build multifamily. If you're building large scale multifamily, the cost of construction is not where it should be for rent at this point. That's why you're going to see a slowdown in multifamily additions. And ultimately, what you'll see is the pendulum swing the other way, where you're going to see where they're not going to be able to build right now. A bunch of people are going to move here, and then all of a sudden rental rates are going to go up. That, coupled with the fact that not only have I been saying this, but now you're seeing it in the news that the Austin market has stabilized. Our prices are flat. They're going to start to go up. Also teaming in the fact that building starts were significantly less over the past 2 years, we're going to start to see inventory go down. And I do think that in 2026, you will see interest rates stay flat, maybe drop a little bit. But I think after that, they're probably going to raise them. It's just because it's all about sentiment. Right now, the sentiment is that the Fed is going to continue to drop the long-term rate, which means that mortgage rates, they don't go exactly with it. But a lot of that is based on who is buying mortgage-backed securities or who's buying the 10-year treasury, which mortgage-backed securities are tied to. But if the Fed does continue to drop rates, what I think you'll start to see is an ARM product become a lot more sexy, because that means that that's tied more to the short-term rate, right? If you do a 7-year ARM, like a 7-1 ARM means that it's fixed for 7 years, and then it can adjust once a year thereafter, basically at that point. And hopefully, if you've got it where it can only adjust 1% a year, if you're sitting on a 3% rate on a 7-year ARM and yours is about to come up, that means in year 8, your rate can only go up to 4, which means that you're still better than if you were to refi now. And then next year, you're at a 5. And so that gives you kind of 2 more years on top of that to really decide where you're going to be at. And hopefully there's a cap at that point, right? Hopefully it caps at 5. And if it caps at 5, then you probably don't have to refi. Unless if you want to go ahead and significantly buy down the rate at that point to try to get down in the 4s. Again, if you have any questions on that, please feel free to hit me up. I'm happy to take a look at that. We'll try to think. Dude, I had told y'all I went to a festival wedding this weekend. And one of the questions I had with one of the attendees was talking about this gentleman owns a home over in the Holly district. He's got a 3% rate, got a ton of equity. It's, as their family has kind of come up, they're looking to move in another area, and was like, man, I don't want to sell my house because I've got a 3% rate. So this is the value of a home equity line of credit or a HELOC, right? And the great thing about HELOCs is, one, it's tied to the long-term rate, and 2, those rates just dropped 0.75 of a point over the past 6 months, roughly. So, kind of with that, if you can get a HELOC at say 5 to 5.5%, and you only need to get, let's say, 200, 300,000 out of your home to go ahead and turn that into a down payment for another home, then you're able to secure, you've still got that 3% rate on your property. The nice thing is that this is actually also the back part of it's an Airbnb. So that does a couple things. With it being part Airbnb, now all of a sudden they become an active versus passive investor. And so what that does is that enables them to take real estate losses and actually offset their W-2 if they have one or whatnot, or other losses that are not real estate losses. Mr. Ben there sold that, king of the memes. If those that don't don't follow Ben, you should check him out. He says, using the hell out of my HELOC blended rate with my mortgage under 5%. Boom. There you go right there, right? That is great. And he's also using his HELOC to make money, right? He's investing that money and then turning around and making money with that money, which is brilliant. Right? It's a way, if you're smart and developer minded, obviously you don't want to be a dumbass and go ahead and throw your HELOC into a car that's going to appreciate a bunch. But if you want to throw it into something that is, that you can invest and that you're going to make more than the interest rate, then that's something that's, and I know Ben is actively doing that right now. He's invested with me in some stuff and he is absolutely killing it. Jay-Z has a line that says, I've made more millionaires than the lotto did. And, I'm sure Ben already had $1 million before he met me, but I'm pretty sure at this point I've helped him make at least $1 million. So shout out to Ben. Maybe 2, who knows? So guys, thinking about a HELOC and what that means is something that you can use if you don't want to get rid of your property, because now might not be the time, and you're into it with a great rate, right? So if you're into it with 3% and you want to go ahead and rent it, and on top of that, in this case, it's got 2 units. So that second unit is also an Airbnb. And looking at the different things that were in the big, beautiful bill, that is something where if you have an Airbnb now, you can go ahead and be included as a active versus passive investor. Disclaimer, call your CPA. I'm not a CPA. Call your attorney. I'm not an attorney, but that's my understanding of it. But definitely talk to your people and talk to your CPA about that. But that's one reason why a lot of people right now are trying to get one Airbnb, because the tax savings that they would have from having one Airbnb could offset some of the losses if it's not something that is drastically cash flow positive. By the way, managing Airbnb sucks. It's not easy. It's a lot of work. It's something that you want to do. Can hopefully point you in the right direction. It's something that I don't enjoy doing personally. So all good there. Crazy to say that, as of July 1st, 2025, an estimated 31,700,000 people live in the state, making Texas the second most populous behind California, which has 39.3 million. Yeah, you've got to think anticipation wise, Texas is probably going to pass California. I don't know what, maybe in the next 5 years, I guess, which is crazy. Definitely crazy to think that Texas will be the number one most populous state. Also, it makes a lot of sense, dude. If you've got a very pro business state, and unfortunately, California, at the end of the day, they're not very pro business. They are not taking care of their high income earners. And so they're leaving. They're defecting. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. They're going to Las Vegas. They're going to Arizona. But you're seeing a lot of them come here. Absolutely. So shout out to all Californians. If you guys want to move here, please feel free to hit me up. Happy to help in any way, shape, or form. Let's see what else is going on here. Long awaited business opening on Rainy as it enters the next era. Let's talk about this real quick. Guys, for those that don't know about Rainy Street, Rainy Street, I'll call this to me, this is like Rainy Street 4.0, basically, at the end of the day, right? Rainy Street 1.0 was let's call it 2001. It was a neighborhood that was developed in the early 1900s that was all single family homes. You had lots that were in that kind of let's say 50 by 150, maybe 60 by 200 range. And then once it got rezoned to be CBD, or what's called the Central Business District, now all of a sudden you can go as high as you want on those. Literally, you see Waterline is our first building over 1,000 feet. And that's in the Rainy Street district. So to me, that was 1.0. 2.0 is when you started to see the bars like Lester Pearl. For those that don't remember, Unbelievable, Bungalow, which happens to be back, all these bars. And it became kind of the new 6th Street. It was where a lot of the college kids were going, especially as 6th Street kind of started to have a little bit of defecting. And then all of a sudden you start to see these towers go up. And now you're in a hybrid. And now I would say what you're starting to see is the going away from the bar scene, and you're seeing towers, lots of towers. And unfortunately, with towers, what you have is towers and bars. A lot of times they don't mix. They don't necessarily commingle because of sound. And so a lot of the bars get, they're getting complaints about sound and everything else. And so eventually what you'll see is just tall buildings. Ben says, my HELOC lender, Frost Bank, never asked what it's for. I can request a draw and have it by end of day. No questions online. Paul has a list of HELOC lenders. That's really nice. Thank you, Ben. Guys, again, this is Paul Smith. Tune in into the 12 at 12. If you have any questions about anything real estate-wise, please feel free to let me know. Clarissa asks, is it still a buyer's market? I would say it is a buyer's market dependent on the areas that you're looking at. Right, there are some areas that never became a buyer's market, and then there are some areas that will be hard to get out of a seller's market, right? And the reason for that is because it can go street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. There could be some extenuating circumstances happening specifically within that neighborhood. If you take the 360 condos, for example, they had to replace all of their patios. That ended up being a $40,000 to, let's say, $70,000 assessment that came to the 360 condos. And unfortunately, what that did is, and then that created a lawsuit. That lawsuit made it so that way there now, unless if you were a cash buyer, nobody else could buy at the 360 because you were what's called not conforming. You were not warrantable, basically, as a condo. And so if you reduce your buyer pool to cash-only buyers, those people are probably going to get a deal because you reduce the amount of buyers. So supply and demand becomes way out of whack at that point. So something like the 360, that's sitting on a significant amount of inventory right now, unfortunately. I actually have a unit coming up, and it's going to be listed for significantly less than we thought we would have got in 2022. But the good news is that the assessment's been paid, and at this point, the lawsuit's done. And they can move forward. And now that they can move forward, that means that they're going to be able to be successful going forward. And they can now build from there and go up. versus the alternative, which is, anytime that you have uncertainty, that's where it becomes an issue. So let's see. Looking on Facebook, because I'm starting to look at other things now. Jerry Logan says Trenton. Mark Suss here says purchase equity over rate. I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. Guys, again, this is Paul Smith with the 12 at 12. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. The 2025 market stats came out, and looking at December to December, it's been pretty flat, which is good, right? The amount of inventory sitting at 4.2 months, which is the same as last year. The number of sales is down just drastically. However, the actual price is about flat as well. And so this is let's say the third consecutive month where we're seeing anything from a flat to like a negative 1%. And what I think you're going to see, especially as interest rates start to normalize, you're going to see a lot more buyers enter into the market. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Tyler Hughes, about this morning at our marketing meeting. And he said their mortgage applications are up significantly from last year. And that's typically the start of what you're going to see for the rest of Q1 into Q2 is people that are starting to get a better impression of the market. And it's a herd mentality. People are, as they start to see a little bit more of a positive sentiment in the market, they're going to start to look at homes, be like, okay, maybe it is time to buy, or we feel like we could purchase something today and it's not going to be worth less tomorrow than it is today. Also, I mean, one of the reasons why I feel that is just based on the things that we just said, right? The amount of companies moving here, the amount of money being invested in Austin. If you have positive migration of people and you have positive investment, and if that positive migration and positive investment outpaces the development, that means that you're going to have supply and demand out of whack. And that's where you start to see upward pressure on pricing, where you'll start to get that, maybe not hockey stick, because we don't necessarily want that. We don't want to blow off the top. But what we do want to do is see a 5 to 7% annual appreciation. That's great. I would be super stoked with that. I'm sure anybody else would as well. It's when you start to see that 20, 30%, it's going to be good for a year to 2 years, but it's not sustainable. And what we don't want is something that's not sustainable, because on the other side of not sustainable is also not sustainable to the downside. So again, maybe this is something the next time this happens, if it's, let's say it's a 20-year situation, next time it happens, I'll definitely call it out. And in which case, then we'll make a bunch of money, and then we'll pull our chips off the table and then crush it when everything comes tumbling down. Guys, again, this is Paul Smith tuning into the 12 at 12. Hope all's well. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. Also, if you want to go ahead and subscribe to my newsletter, please feel free. We are on YouTube, so smash like and subscribe as well. Y'all be good. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.